March is Women's History Month, but women make history every day. Women's Business Report had a chance to get a very great opportunity to discover a very special place in Howard County, Maryland. It's dedicated to preserving the artifacts and storytelling from the continent of Africa. The African Art Museum of Maryland was founded in 1980 by Doris Ligon and her husband, the late Lieutenant Colonel Claude Ligon. Ms. Ligon still carries on the tradition today as its co-founder, curator, director, and museum docent. And it's one of only 3 museums of its kind in the United States that's devoted exclusively to the art of Africa. Angela Harris, the host of Women's Business Report, takes us to Columbia, Maryland to discover this very special place and some very powerful women who make it happen.
It's an honor and a privilege to have both of you here. I'm really excited and looking forward to talking to you. So let's get started with Ms. Ligon. So Ms. Ligon, talk to us about what inspired you and your late husband to start the museum.
Oh, thank you. I'm delighted that you're here. We had talked about starting a museum for 5 years, so it wasn't an overnight thing. And we knew that there needed to be another museum that would talk about the arts of Africa with a vocabulary that would bring people to you. And so after thinking about it and trying other little things and seeing how we could best approach it, one day I just told my husband I'm ready to start it, because he was saying stop talking about doing it and just do it. But nobody tells me what to do. And so I decided that I was ready, and when I told him I was ready, then he immediately called a lawyer and we incorporated it in our home. The need for it was that I could see that there was so much misunderstanding about the continent of Africa. There was so much misinformation about it that once I began to learn the truth, I found that there were a lot of people who also were in the same situation as was I, that they believed what they heard, and all that we heard was very old and it had not been verified. And so I took a course at Howard Community College, and the course was called Art in Man's Culture. There was nothing in the textbook, and the textbook was a thick one. It was called Art, The History of Modern Art by Arneson. There was nothing in that textbook about Africa. And so the professor, whose name was Judy, Professor Judy, went around the room and told everybody, write a paper about any aspect of art that you wanted. And when she got to me, I said, African art. She said, oh, I'm so glad you know about African art. I said, I don't know a thing about African art, except I know that Picasso copied some of the conventions and did not give the people credit for it until late in life. And I said, I'm going to write about it. And the paper was to go in the library, all the papers of Howard Community College, which I hope I never see that paper again, because I had no business writing a paper with a broad subject, not knowing anything about African art, that was called African art. So I learned a lot from that investigation, and the more I learned, the more I needed to know, and found that other people needed to know what I knew. So we came up with a vocabulary. I mentioned it to my husband. You don't mention anything to him that's educational and then change your mind. And so he had called the lawyer, we incorporated, and there we were.
Fantastic. So what is unique about this museum? There are other museums. I think you're one of 3 museums in the country that focus on the arts of Africa. But what is unique about this museum that visitors may not find in other museums?
We are very small. We are one of 3, as you said, that focus only on the traditional, primarily the traditional arts of Africa. And we have a vocabulary that is geared toward all ages that we use for different age groups as we represent. But we are the only one of those 3 that was started by African Americans. Now that doesn't make us any better, it doesn't make us any worse. It just gives us a different perspective, a way to approach it. It's part of our indigenous heritage. And so when we talk about it, not that that gives us a better feel for it, but it gives us a different feel for it. It gives us more connection with it. And I'm not saying that others who have studied African art far longer than have I, don't have a connection with it, but because we are black and started a museum that is devoted exclusively to the arts of Africa, that makes us unusual, and we're the only one as far as I know.
Fantastic. So you're a nonprofit organization. What challenges do you face as a nonprofit organization focused on the arts? I'm sure it must be awfully challenging, but tell us about some of the challenges.
Thank you. It's one of the most wonderful things I've ever done. Next to my family, I wouldn't want to do anything else. But since you asked about challenge, money. And I don't mean that you need money to do this, but it wouldn't hurt. You know, you come up with programs that you want to do, you don't have the money. Money means a staff, that you have a staff. You know, as a director, you direct. That's why you're called a director. And you normally have staff, and you direct the staff, but you are there to bring resources to the museum and to start policy. We are fortunate, though, that we have members of the board, like Ms. Barrett, Jackie Kakembo, and many others, who are on the board, who are not staff, who act like staff. And that's what keeps us going. So we don't, Ms. Barrett says I don't give a choice. But directors don't give choices.
Right, direct, right. There you go.
And the
Leadership.
older you are and the more forceful you are, especially if you're Taurus the Bull, you don't say, would you like to do so-and-so? We need so-and-so. And they've always responded, really and seriously. I've never tried to pressure any of them, but I tell them how. Now, it doesn't hurt to maybe cry a little bit when you need something. Then you see
whatever
the
it takes.
person crying, it doesn't hurt. You know, but we are fortunate that we have a wonderful board and that we have wonderful people coming to us. And so we've done all of this without money, as Warren Robbins said years ago. But money wouldn't hurt a bit more if we had it. We could do many more programs. We could do so much more if we had more money. But we are held in high regard without it. But I'm not suggesting that people not give us money at all, because there's so many things you can do with it for the benefit of the community.
Great.
And for the truth about Africa.
Yeah, I'm sure a little more money wouldn't hurt any of us, but especially with a nonprofit organization. So I took a look at some statistics, and the latest statistics that I could find showed that leadership from people of color, leadership in museums was around 12%, and that's pretty low. So I'm asking you, what do you think, or what do you do, or what do you think we can all do to help improve that number?
Education is the answer. If it was made available, the information to young people, that there are positions in museums you need to be qualified for. Times have changed. When I was young and I said I wanted to be an interior designer, they said, well, there's no need in you thinking about that, it won't work. But times have somewhat changed. And I think if more people knew about many positions that are available in museums, they would then see the interest that they have being fulfilled. All you have to do is to be qualified for it and to have an interest in it. Now, you might not make a whole lot of money, so you do have a choice. You know, do you want to pursue your goal that doesn't give you a lot of money, or would you be satisfied with making less money if you're satisfied, if you're happy in what you're doing? But I think if more people knew about the opportunities that exist and what the qualifications are, then I think more young people would be interested in going into museums. Times have changed, and I think that all they have to do is to be encouraged to come in and make a difference.
Fantastic. Well, yeah, there's a lot to be said about following your passions. And what's the saying is, if you follow your passion, you don't work a day in your life. That is very real. So doing what you love, there's a lot of benefit to that. So this year you are celebrating 42 years at the museum. So what's next for the museum? What does the future hold?
We want to be as big as the Louvre.
Fantastic.
We want to be as big as the Louvre. We've said that for the past 30 years. And I'll tell you this, I don't mean structure-wise. We want to make as big an impression. We want to be as as important, not as important. We want people to have, we want to have the influence that the Louvre has. Once people know about the Louvre, you know, we don't have to be as big as the Louvre, but I think in some ways we're well on our way to that, because a lot of people we've met know more now about the masks and other art objects that are called traditional. They know the truth about Africa, not just because of us, but because times have changed and more honesty and more truth is coming out about the continent. And so people who used to sometimes investigate and would give some information maybe didn't have all of the information, or they were looking at it from another perspective. But more accurate information is coming out now. And I think that with that, more people will look at the continent differently. And you will find that it's going to be, with the young people, they have a different attitude. I'm not saying that the old people, you know, don't. But I think that everybody knows more things that are positive about Africa now than before, and that's what I hope will happen. The museum can be as small as this one, but if you have the right tools, you have the right people, you have the right attitude, you can be as effective as the Louvre.
Fantastic. Tell us about one or two of your favorite exhibits here.
One or two of the pieces, you mean?
Pieces, yeah.
Well, they're all, I can't say what is my favorite, but one of the pieces that we have is completely out of the ordinary, and nobody but my grandson, who was 3 going on 4 at the time, ever just stood and said what it was. And it's the mask from the Chewa people in Malawi. It's called a Cassia Malero, and it is completely out of the ordinary as far as masks go, because you wouldn't walk in and say, that's a very nice mask. People have called it a house, they've called it a hamper, they've called it a boat, everything but a mask. And then I'll say the mask over there, and they're looking for this mask, and they're saying, well, what are we talking about? Well, when I say it's that one that has the feathers or has the strap on it, they say, that's a mask? So that's completely out of the ordinary. Its size. Now, there are masks that are larger and way more, but that's the largest mask that we have ever exhibited, and it is completely out of the ordinary. We're thinking about a mask, something you wear across your face, or nowadays covers your nose and your mouth. That covers the whole person. He is the messenger, and the message is as always, in the mask. The other piece that we have has a value for me that goes back to my grandmother. It's the chair that comes from the people of Liberia. It was called a grandfather's chair. Now, my grandmother was a grandmother and did not have a special chair, but the power that that person had who sat in that chair, my grandmother had that kind of special quiet power. And she had that kind of influence over me. And I'm Taurus the Bull, an only child, the only grandchild in the house for 5 years. I think I ruled that house. I wish I had some of that power now. But that represents the grandfather sat in that chair. He was privileged to sit, and it was his wisdom that allowed him, and his age that went with his wisdom, that allowed him to sit in that chair. Well, my grandmother had that kind of wisdom, and had there been a chair for grandmothers, she would have had one. So that chair from the area of Liberia, is one of my favorites, and it's a personal piece of ours that we have put on loan to the museum.
Fantastic. Ms. Barrett, you're an educator, and I understand that you've taught everything from K through 12 to college level courses. In your opinion, why is it important for us to continue to teach this African culture and art?
So that it can live on. The children are like sponges, so if we start teaching them when they're little, they will remember those lessons, and hopefully they'll teach their children, and they will teach their children, and so forth and so on. So I think it's important so that we will be remembered. You know, we, the older generation, will die off, but we hope, as we live, that we've taught our children and grandchildren and others to respect the culture and to believe in the culture and to carry it on throughout their lives. So if we don't teach it, they won't know it. So it's our responsibility to make sure that we ingrain the importance of African American history into them so that they'll know from whence they came
As a longtime resident of Howard County, Maryland, why is it important to you as a resident to have access to this type of art and culture here in Howard County?
Convenience. You know, I can drive to DC, which is about a 50-minute ride or so. However, having it in my back door, I am more incented to come and to participate and to share and to give what resources I can monetarily so that it will be here for others to appreciate.
As a board member, you have firsthand knowledge of the challenges that the museum has. What, in your opinion, are the resources that are most needed for this museum and museums like it to survive?
I think Mrs. Ligon said it all. Finances, money. Now, we talk about money a lot, but nothing survives without resources or money. So our responsibility as board members pretty much run twofold: to help bring in financial resources as we can, you know, through asking questions, asking friends, asking family members, or asking anybody who listens sometimes. But we also need to be appreciated. I think that things we appreciate, we work for. So this museum, I'm saying so, has been here for 42 years, and I think I am probably, if not the longest standing board member, among the longest standing, because I think I started back maybe 40 years ago, almost, very early on. So I've been in and out, and Mrs. Ligon won't let me die away, so and every time I leave, she calls me back. So I guess I'm making some kind of contribution that's substantial, not just monetarily, but I love this place, I really do. And I have influenced some of the community members whom I know, who are they are basically in influence, to participate and to help and to spread the word and to make sure that when money is being divided, you know, where the higher ups are talking, that they mention the African Art Museum of Maryland.
Great. Well, I'm going to ask this last question to both of you. You're both really successful entrepreneurs in your own right. What advice do you give to young women, or women of any age actually, because you can start a business at any age? What advice do you give to women who are interested in starting a business of any type? I know there are many challenges, so what's the best advice that you give? So maybe we'll start with you, Miss Barrett, and we'll let Miss Ligon have the last word on that. So
I'll give the short answer. Have passion and believe in whatever it is you want to do. Whether it's a daycare center, whether it's a museum, whether it's driving the fastest car, you know, in the NASCAR race, do it well, believe in it, and just do it.
great. And what about you, Miss Ligon? What advice do you give?
I agree completely with Miss Barrett. It's hard work. Anything too easy, you know, you might not want to spend your time with that. I mean, you do that on the side. But don't expect that any business that you start is going to be necessarily that successful overnight, and that it won't remain successful unless you work hard at it. So you got to be really serious about it. You made a commitment, you've taken the state's money or the county's money or somebody's money, you owe something back from that. And so you expect to work hard, and you expect to demonstrate integrity and believability and show the people that you are doing the absolute best that you possibly can. And then people will come to you. Once they see that you're serious, they'll come to you. That's not the time to slack up, because my grandmother always said, you strive for perfection. You will never reach it. But you never strive for anything less than that. You know, this is good enough. That's not good enough. You strive for perfection. You'll never reach it, but you keep striving for it. And as long as you strive for it, there will be people who will come to your aid, and you will be delighted and grateful for their appreciation, and that will cause you and encourage you to work harder.
That's fantastic advice. Thank you for that. So if people want to come to visit you, visit this wonderful museum, this wonderful space, what are the hours? Where can they find you?
Believe me, we welcome everybody to come. We don't crowd anybody when they come in here. We're delighted to see everybody. And they can come Thursdays through Saturdays, 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. And then as time goes on, our hours will increase to Wednesdays through Saturday. 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. in this Long Reach Village Center, which has been rejuvenated and everybody's encouraging, come to Long Beach Village Center, and you can get whatever it is that's positive that you want here.
Thank you both for having us here today. Thank you for sitting down with us. Thank you for your time. We look forward to having people come and visit us here at the African Art Museum of Maryland. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed our piece on the African Art Museum of Maryland. And I got to tell you, when we went to shoot it, I was just totally amazed by everything that's there. I didn't get a chance to see it all, so you know I'm going back. And since I'm being honest, actually about a month ago, I didn't even know this location existed, but now I do. So if you'd like to know more information, if you'd like to tell your friends, if you'd like to support it, here's how you do it. The website is africanartmuseum.org. That's africanartmuseum.org. Their email address is info@africanartmuseum.org. That's info@africanartmuseum.org. And they are on Twitter. It's African Art MM, like Museum of Maryland. That's African Art MM. And if you want to give them a phone call, the phone number is 410-740-7411. That's 410-740-7411. I'd like to thank our hostess with the mostest, Angela Harris. She's the one that brought this interview to life. And actually, she produced this piece, so she did a great job with it. And speaking of great jobs, I'd like to thank our director of photography, that's Nathan Acholo. He made sure that the great visuals came to life. And me, as executive producer and creator, I just sat back and watched them do the magic and got out of the way. I do that a lot, just get out of the way and let the people who know what they're doing do their thing. So, on behalf of Women's Business Report, one of the easier websites for us is WBR-TV.us. That's WBR-TV.us. That'll take you right to the Women's Business Report website. It's a little easier to remember. And our Twitter address is WomenBUS, as in business. WomenBUS, and of course, Women's Business Report for Facebook and also for Instagram. For Women's Business Report, I'm Alvin Jones, wishing you a happy Women's History Month.